The 5-year-old girl only had a stomachache, but it made the arriving paramedics very angry the moment the truth is revealed. The girl's mother scolded her husband badly. Just now paramedics were called. The 5-year-old girl was vomiting continuously. Her expression was very painful. The mother suspected her daughter had eaten too much candy, but when she saw the girl's dilated pupils, paramedics were shocked.
This isn't a stomachache. She's high out of her mind.
The mother was in disbelief. How could a 5-year-old girl possibly be on drugs? Emily asked the mother what kind of candy she gave the girl.
Gummy bears, M&Ms, the kind our neighbors have given out.
But no one noticed the father's evasive look.
She must have gotten into my stash.
What?
The father said he had a bag of edibles at Brett's urging. The father quickly turned back to the room to search. But to everyone's despair, the bag that was once full was now mostly eaten by the daughter. At that moment, the girl suddenly had a seizure. The paramedic quickly injected 1 milligram of midazolam. Fortunately, the girl's condition stabilized quickly. However, such a large dose, it was hard to imagine what damage it might have caused to the girl's body. The paramedics quickly took the girl to the hospital.
No, I'll go to the hospital.
The firefighter was still rejoicing for just saving another life, unaware that a sniper had already targeted him. Caught off guard, he was pierced through the chest by a sudden bullet. Seeing Eddie get shot and fall to the ground, Buck stood stunned, but the distant sniper had already aimed at him. Fortunately, at the critical moment, a teammate rushed over and knocked him down. Seeing Ed lying in a pool of blood barely alive, Buck snapped back to reality and immediately rolled under the truck, then crawled desperately towards him. He needed to get him to the hospital as soon as possible. Taking advantage of the sniper reloading, he grabbed Eddie's arm, dragging him under the fire truck. Then he pulled him out from the other side. A teammate quickly opened the door, and together they lifted Eddie into the truck. Meanwhile, the sniper continued shooting. Seeing this, they didn't dare delay, starting the truck quickly to escape. They rushed him to the hospital immediately, but as Bug was about to leave, another firefighter was brought in with gunshot wounds. Meanwhile, the cops arrived at the sniper scene to investigate. Initially, they thought it was a personal vendetta, but another video of a firefighter being sniped changed their perspective.
Wait until fire and rescue arrived. He's targeting firefighters.
The fire captain tried to calm the team's nerves. He knew the sniper situation made everyone uneasy, but their job had to continue, so he requested bulletproof vests. And during rescues, they had SWAT close protection. However, the next rescue posed a dilemma for the firefighters. A man was trapped on a 300 feet high tower crane. If they went up to rescue, they would become targets for the sniper. But the worker's arm was severely injured and bleeding profusely. They had at most 10 minutes to rescue him. Just when everyone was at a loss, a firefighter suddenly climbed up. The captain asked him to come down immediately, but he refused. He understood the consequences of his actions, but he couldn't care about that anymore. He didn't want to see another teammate get shot in front of him. While he felt helpless to protect them, as he climbed halfway up, a reflection suddenly flashed from the opposite building. Buck was startled, as it was likely a reflection from a scope, but he didn't hesitate much and kept climbing. Soon he reached the top of the crane. Following the paramedics' instructions, Buck applied a tourniquet to him, then took out a saw to cut the steel cable. The man was then rescued by the firefighter. Meanwhile, the cop found a clue, but the investigation result shocked her. The sniper was from the police department. This cop was simulating a sniper shot because there was a sniper in the city. He specializes in killing firefighters. For this reason, firefighters were required to wear body armor on every mission, and they need to be protected by SWAT. In order to find the sniper, the cop was trying to find clues from the sniper's point of view. As the shell casing slipped, they finally found a shell casing left by the sniper. However, the investigation of the shell casings was a shock to them. The bullets used by the sniper were specially supplied by the police. That means the sniper was a cop too. Then they targeted a recently resigned officer, and he was precisely a sniper. The SWAT team broke into the house and arrested him. But when questioned by the cop, the man said that they had arrested the wrong person. Although he was forced to leave the force because he accidentally wounded a hostage during a mission, the hostage was saved by a firefighter in the end. So he didn't hate the firemen. Instead, he was grateful to them. This puts the case at a standstill. Meanwhile, the firefights were called for help. There was a fire in a building with people trapped inside. The captain went in with his team to rescue them, but as they spread out to search for the victims, the team suddenly received an evacuation notice. The cop was analyzing the case with his colleague, suddenly thought that snipers always work in pairs, so they suspected that the shooter might be another person, and this fire was also a trap. However, when the captain was about to evacuate, he found a man lying on the ground. He rushed forward to check, found it was a dummy. The captain immediately realized that something was wrong, but when he was about to leave, he was shot down by the man behind him. He was that sniper during the hostage rescue operation. He accidentally shot the hostage and the criminal at the same time, but what he didn't expect, the criminal who deserved to die was saved by the firefighters. After that, he was released from prison and continued to commit crimes. So he blamed the firemen. He blamed the firemen for everything, thinking it was their hypocrisy that caused this. But firefighters are supposed to save lives. While they were arguing about it, the cop came up the ladder to the rooftop, put on a fire suit to rescue the captain. Soon she was in the sniper's room, and as he was about to shoot the captain, she quickly stepped over the fire and shot the sniper twice. This boy was a deaf-mute child, but he kept calling the fire alarm again and again. After the firefighters arrived, the man said there was nothing wrong at home. At this moment, Jack was suddenly attracted by the boy's conversation with his mom. Strangely, as the father of a deaf-mute child, he did not know sign language. Later, Jack took the boy and his mom aside. The boy revealed the truth. The man was actually his stepfather, who often threw stuff and hit his mom, and it was getting worse. He called the fire alarm because of their quick response. Seeing this, the mother no longer concealed it. She said she had gone to the cop, but the cop said she was overreacting. That night, her husband became more abusive.
He locked me in the closet for 11 hours that night.
Jack discussed with his teammate, and he thought of a plan. He had Miller stole the man. Then Jack told the plan to the woman. The woman sneaked back home, later packed her luggage. At this moment, a flame suddenly rose in the house. He hurriedly went to the mother and child, grabbing the boy's hand forcefully, questioning if he started the fire. He even wanted to hit his wife. The firefighter took him away in time. Several firefighters quickly extinguished the fire.
I ought to keep him out for a week or two. Keep who out? A jerk's wife and kid.
A car suddenly broke into the fire station. The firefighters quickly rushed out to check. The driver was still honking nonstop. A deer had crashed into the car. The two were dumbfounded on the spot. Diane found the antler had pierced the woman's abdomen. She told her to stay calm, but the woman didn't listen at all.
This is the worst.
Karina asked her name.
We're doing introductions right now.
Karina had to change the topic, saying both firefighters and doctor were here today. You don't even know your luck.
Luck? There are antlers inside my body. Okay,
The firefighters no longer spoke to her, quietly took the rescue tools when everything was ready.
All right, can you turn that way to protect your eyes for me?
Face the deer?
Face me, look at me.
Karina had to keep comforting her. The firefighter quickly pried open the car door, then secured the wound. Next, they only needed to saw off the antler to send her to the hospital. Unexpectedly, the next second,
Is this thing still alive?
He's fully dead. I think I checked its pulse.
I thought you were a doctor.
Not a deer.
the firefighter said it was just muscle spasms. She assured her that the deer was definitely dead. The boy was just playing with a drone, but unexpectedly, it alarmed half the city's firefighters. Everyone's faces were filled with shock, unable to imagine that a small drone could bring down a helicopter, which crashed onto the roof of an apartment building. At that moment, the helicopter was in pieces, with parts scattered all over the place. Even more despairing was that the helicopter's fuel was pouring into the building. Thick smoke was billowing inside the building, and a fire could break out at any moment. The firefighters had to act quickly. On the roof, Kelly and his team were trying to get the passengers out of the helicopter, but it was slowly slipping off the roof. The firefighters first secured the helicopter body, then began the rescue operation. Soon as the door was pried open, everyone was successfully rescued. Sherman and Otis found the propeller in someone's backyard. A woman was trapped underneath it, but the propeller was too heavy. The two of them couldn't move it at all. Otis had to go back for tools. At this moment, Herman said,
Nice piece of jewelry you got here.
which made her temporarily forget the pain. Finally, Otis and Sherman got the rotor off the woman and sent her to the ambulance. At this point, they found a remote control drone stuck in the propeller. People who like charging their phones or laptops in bed should be cautious. Just now, while a woman left to use the bathroom, the charging cable on her bed short-circuited, sparks flew out, and in the blink of an eye, the entire house was engulfed in flames. Firefighters arrived. The house was filled with thick smoke, pitch black inside. The woman was curled up in the bathroom, her consciousness somewhat hazy. Just as they were about to take her away, she said, "Hold on." Due to the urgency of the situation, the firefighters directly carried her out of the house. The fire grew stronger. The firefighters immediately turned on the water hoses, and the flames were extinguished soon. At that moment, the woman couldn't stop coughing. Having difficulty breathing, she endured the pain in her throat. Struggling to shout and name Charlie, the captain realized there was still someone inside. The firefighters were notified to continue the search. Travis suddenly heard a faint groan.
You guys hear that? Oh my God, it's a kid.
Everyone started calling out Charlie. Then Jack pinpointed the location. The firefighters gathered around, lifting a burnt chair, and there was Charlie. It turned out Charlie was the woman's pet dog. They then concluded the rescue amid the applause of the crowd. The man was driving past a construction site when he was accidentally impaled by an iron pole, but he miraculously survived. The problem was that the pole was right next to his carotid. If the firefighters made even a millimeter in the wrong direction, the man could have died on the spot. The firefighters initially wanted to use a cutting machine, but as soon as the hydraulic shears touched the pole, the man screamed in excruciating pain. The team faced a challenge at that moment. The man's heart rate was elevated. If he didn't calm down, he would go into VTAC. So the firefighters decided to take a different approach. They covered the man with a blanket and then shielded his face, planning to cut the pole with a blowtorch. However, the man's emotions were very unstable. Casey did his best to calm him down. Soon the front part of the pole was cut off, but the man kept saying he would die. Casey made a bet with the man that if he survived, he'd buy him a 6-pack of beer. The back part of the pole was also successfully cut off, and with that, the man was finally rescued. The man had a fork stuck in his eye, but he seemed oblivious to it. The paramedics saw this and were stunned. He thanked them for coming and said that a guy in the back looked really hurt. The guy on the floor wasn't wasn't breathing, and his pulse was slow.
Look, man, I didn't mean to kill him. He said.
The reason the two were fighting was because the man was out of tune. Sylvie opened his mouth and saw a stick in his throat.
Whoa, Daddy.
What do we got?
She pulled it out and realized that his meth head bandmate had shoved an entire corn dog down his throat. This man had a grenade stuck inside his body, and a few minutes later, this egg-sized live round would blow the ambulance to pieces. Just now, while cleaning his grenade collection, his screwdriver touched the propelling charge, resulting in the round being stuck in his thigh. The femoral artery had been nicked. They needed to get him transported now. Unaware that the grenade round held a great danger, fortunately, firefighter Eddie had been a military medic. During the bandage change, he finally noticed the danger.
Hold on. I thought you said this was practice round.
It is.
Practice rounds, blue caps. Gold caps are live. Pull over!
The bomb squad inspection revealed it was indeed a live grenade. A launch grenade has two components, the gunpowder and the explosive charge. The reason this live round didn't explode was because it had a proximity fuse. The fuse would only detonate the round when the cap was far enough. At this moment, the man was in grave danger. Eddie said he could pull the live round out, but it was not an easy job. He needed to ensure the shell didn't be turned. The sensor measures the distance traveled. Any mishandling would spell doom for the three of them. The two were extremely tense, but they managed to remove it without incident. Quickly transferred the man. Meanwhile, firefighters were called out. A man had been hit by a car and torn in half. He was still alive, but his condition was critical. Just moments ago, the man had been riding his newly purchased motorcycle home. His Terminator-like appearance caught the attention of a blonde driver. He politely raised his hand in response. However, that moment of distraction resulted in the next second. The arriving firefighters were stunned by the scene. The man was literally torn in half. Athena told the captain not much we can do for him. He's lost a lot of blood, but strangely the man could still speak. Bobby theorized the man survived the impact with the helmet, but the man won't last much longer. Even then, he was still thinking about getting home quickly because his son was waiting to celebrate his birthday. At that moment, the man's phone suddenly rang. It was a call from his son. Excitedly, he boasted about his new motorcycle to his son.
Yeah, I got it, like we said. 96 twin cam engine, yeah. 1560 cc's, cherry red. Hey, and don't tell Mom, this thing's a chick magnet. I would have felt just as good if I was on a 10-speed bike. I love you, son.
At night, a traffic accident occurred. One car was hanging off the edge of a bridge. The driver of the other car was unharmed. However, when the firefighter rescued him, he smelled a strong odor of alcohol on him. The car was also filled with empty beer cans. The cop immediately took him aside and said he would handle it. At this time, the situation of the car on the bridge was dire. Seeing this, Casey rushed over and temporarily held the car with their weight. Then they propped up the car with wooden blocks, then stabilized the car with a stabilizer. Afterwards, they removed the front windshield, planning to rescue the person from there. At this moment, Casey glanced inadvertently and found that the drunk driver was gone. Casey hurried forward to inquire.
Where's the driver?
Some officers took him to the hospital.
Seeing the cop being evasive, Casey sensed something was wrong. He immediately looked into the car. Sure enough, as expected, all the empty beer cans had been taken away. At this time, the cop finally told the truth. It turned out that the drunk driver was actually Detective Voight's son. He was a notorious dirty cop in Chicago. Casey looked at the seriously injured victim, then at the arrogant Detective Voight. He had already made up his mind. The next day at work, the fire station received a donated TV, signed by Detective Voight. Unaware of the situation, the team was thrilled. But facing Lieutenant Casey's stern refusal, they had no choice but to return it. The father, discharged with minor injuries, brought a cake to thank the firefighters and also delivered some infuriating news. The police had charged him with running a red light and causing the accident. The man knew something was definitely wrong, but he was kind of at a loss in terms of how to fight it. He said he had no choice but to seek help from the fire station. Asking them to testify, Detective Voight's tactics were too underhanded, turning his drunk driving son into the victim, so Casey didn't hesitate any longer. He wrote this in the accident report.
Visibly drunk, smelled alcohol on his breath. Saw open containers on the passenger seat.
Seeing Casey ready to take the lead, the chief showed him to stand and extended his hand. As their hands clasped tightly, the chief became his solid support. On that night, Detective Voight came to see Casey himself. He invited Casey to a bar, confessed that his son had a criminal record. If charged with DUI again, he would face at least 10 years in prison. He hoped Casey could withdraw the report and said he would owe Casey a big favor. However, thinking of the paralyzed victim, who would also bear false charge, Casey refused on the spot. Then the detective bared his fangs.
I'm not asking!
If you're not the kind of man to do a cop a favor, I can take this to the next level real easy.
Fortunately, the chief appeared midway, so he did not continue to threaten. From that day on, Detective Voight was always haunting. Even when the firefighters gathered for dinner, his figure flashed by. The next morning, just as Casey started work, his car tires were slashed, the windows were smashed, and his wallet was gone. He knew it was Voight's doing. That very night, Voight came to Casey himself, claiming he had caught the thief who stole the wallet, but Casey found an extra $10,000 in the returned bag.
This isn't mine. Well, the kid must have stashed it. All you gotta do is change that report. I'm not gonna do that.
Casey left the money in the car. That night, Voight stopped Casey's girlfriend, threatening her to send a message to her boyfriend, not to be ungrateful.
I'd really hate to see things get uglier than they already are.
After Voight left, the girl was trembling with fear. When Casey learned his girlfriend had been threatened, he stormed into the police station alone, directly confronted Detective Voight in his office, warning him to stay away from them.
I'm not some scared banger begging for a look the other way. I'm not retracting my statement. Ever.
Watching Casey leave, Voight decided to teach him a lesson. That day, while Casey was walking down the street, he was suddenly ambushed by two masked men. As a firefighter, Casey was in great shape, but he was outnumbered. Eventually, he was beaten to the ground. Luckily, he only suffered minor injuries. It seemed like a warning. Later that night, his girlfriend was also targeted. When Casey arrived at the scene, he found the tires slashed and the window shattered. Faced with his girlfriend's inquiries, Casey was filled with rage. He followed Voight under the cover of night, silently gripping his fire axe. Just as he was about to act, the chief appeared and stopped him. He told Casey to stay rational. Voight was just waiting for him to slip up. Casey had to swallow his anger for now, but Voight's tactics were far from over. His girlfriend was frightened and suggested they leave town for a while, but Casey disagreed. While they were arguing, two cops knocked on the door.
We have a warrant to search your home. We got a tip says you're in possession of cocaine.
Hearing the conversation outside, his girlfriend hurriedly checked the house and found something under the dining table, but the cops had already entered. In a moment of panic, she hid the thing behind her. Casey explained that he was a firefighter and his girlfriend was a doctor. There was no way they'd do such thing, but the cops were clearly prepared without any choice. Casey said he had a detective friend named Antonio Dawson who could vouch for their innocence. He dialed the number and handed the phone to the officer. After conversation,
He says they're clean.
If I ever have to come back here again, no favor is gonna get you out of it.
after the cops left, his girlfriend then revealed what she had hidden and quickly flushed it down the toilet. By the time she came back out, Casey had already driven off to confront Voight. He knocked on Voight's door and punched him as soon as it opened, followed by another punch that knocked Voight down. He warned Voight that if he kept up his tricks, he would kill him, but Voight, lying on the ground, pulled out a gun from his pant leg. Casey was stunned. If he was shot here, Voight could easily frame it as self-defense, but Voight knew he couldn't kill Casey if Casey died. The DUI report on his son would never be withdrawn. He threw the gun to Casey.
You retract that statement against my son, or you pull that trigger. That's the only thing that's gonna stop me.
Casey was momentarily confused. He wanted to end this once and for all, but doing so would ruin him too. With no better solution, he retreated for now. However, a fire incident would soon change everything. Casey risked his life to rescue a mother and son from an 8-story building. The man was a local gang leader. He quickly recognized Casey. He was the firefighter who has gone up against Voight. As Casey was about to leave, the man called out to him.
Man, I can help you out.
That night, the man privately contacted Voight, saying he had heard from his boys that Voight had a grudge against a firefighter, offering $500 just to beat him up.
Figure I could do a lot worse for a grand.
Bro, you stop him for good, I'll give you 2.
However, the man was wearing the wire. With the evidence obtained, cops immediately moved in. Detective Voight was finally arrested. Though he was a father, he was also a cop. Those who abuse the law will ultimately face justice. This man called 911, saying he heard a baby crying in his bathroom, but the firefighters who arrived heard nothing. Just then, the captain seemed to hear something, quickly grabbed a stethoscope, and sure enough, the sound of a baby crying came through. There was really a baby in the sewer. Seeing this, Buck grabbed an axe to break the wall, but fortunately, the captain stopped him. To protect the baby, the firefighters began digging by hand. Soon the sewer pipe was exposed. They carefully cut it with a saw, and eventually the entire pipe was removed. Following the light of the flashlights, they indeed found a baby stuck inside, but the baby was wedged it tightly and couldn't be pulled out. Then they applied lubricant inside the pipe. With the captain's gentle push, the baby was finally freed. However, the baby had already stopped breathing. The firefighters began to tap the baby's chest while using his fingers to clear the baby's throat. As the foreign object was removed, a faint cry finally came out. The firefighters rushed to get the baby to the hospital. Meanwhile, the cop noticed blood on the floor. Following the trail, they successfully located the sewer entrance where the incident happened. They also found the baby's mother. At that moment, the girl was bleeding heavily and in critical condition and needed to be rushed to the hospital. The mother and baby were both placed in the ambulance. At that moment, the baby's condition was very serious. The captain then took the girl's hand and gently placed it next to the baby. As soon as the mother touched the baby's tiny hand, the baby miraculously grabbed it and the situation began to stabilize. Seeing the innocent and strong little life, the girl shed tears of regret.